All right, guys. Today we got two special guests, man, truly legends of the underground scene that helped build it to what it is today. Eastern Conference Records in the house, DJ Mighty My and Mr. Eon, aka the High and Mighty. Woo!
In the mix. What's up, yo?
How you guys doing today?
Good, man.
Reporting live from two very different cities, Las Vegas and Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you guys are like only like I think the second interview I've done with two people. I've only done like one-on-one interviews. So it's like, This is interesting, you know?
All right, cool.
But this is real special for me, man, to be able to cover your guys' story. You know, I like to start at the beginning and just to get you both to say a little bit about what part of Philly you're from and what your guys' childhood was like.
I grew up in Center City, Philadelphia, at this apartment complex that's on the Parkway, if you know, like Rocky, you know, when he's running up the stairs. Like I lived kind of near there in this cool like 4-building development thing that was in the city. And it was dope. And went to the same school. We went to this Quaker school called Friend Select. So it was a friend school. And that was in Center City as well. And, you know, I think we were like kind of, you know, middle class, you know, Jewish. Both of our families are from kind of New York. And, you know, we kind of just were part of the times of what we grew up in. You know, I always say, how old were you? Like, what year was it when you were 16? And for us, it was 88. And it's like to be 16 in 1988, that's kind of like when you're absorbing everything. And, you know, we just absorbed, you know, those years in terms of culture and, you know, stuff like that. And kind of that's, you know, where the basis for why to like even be into hip hop or, you know, try to, you know, do hip hop.
And both of your parents were hippies, right?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. My mom had a huge afro into the 90s. And then my dad was, they were just, you know, like products of, and they were hippies. So they, you know, like my dad was 18 in 1968. So no, he was 28 in 1968, but still he was wild. And so, you know, he was 18 in 58 buying the classic jazz albums in the record stores. And I was in the record stores in 88 buying the classic hip hop stuff. So, you know, just, you know, that's where so I definitely had hippie parents.
And this actually kind of worked to your benefit because they weren't traditional parents in the way that they wanted you to be like a lawyer or things that, you know, a lot of people, Jewish people would expect, right? In a stereotypical way.
Yeah, they weren't too pushy, that's for sure. Like they were more, you know, very liberal and being like, hey, you know, do you want to go to Hebrew school? And like you would ask any kid, they'd be like, no. But, you know, usually the parents are like, no, you're going. And I think they grew up, especially like they both grew up under hardcore, like first generation, you know, New York Jews. And like they were just speaking Yiddish. And so I think like they had bar mitzvahs that were, you know, in a room full of like 15 people. And by the 80s, the bar mitzvahs kind of turn into, you know, what they are like now. And I don't know when it turned into that, but, you know, these huge parties and everything. And I remember my parents being like, no, we don't like what it's turned into. But I think it also had to do with they probably didn't really want to take me to Hebrew school either. So I think it went both ways, but they weren't very traditional and they were cool, especially, you know, coming out of college and, you know, just kind of doing what I wanted to do and not, you know, forcing anything on me. But yeah, for sure.
Got you. What about you, Milo?
Oh, we pretty much had like similar parental stories as far as kind of um, growing up in New York. Then they go to the Midwest to go to schools. Eon's dad went to Michigan. My dad went to Wisconsin. So it was a kind of a similar style of parenting. The only difference is my mom moved to New York with my sister when I was in 5th grade. And so I spent half my time in New York. So that's really the only difference. But like just going to New York every other weekend is really kind of what shaped my love for hip hop and recording the radio shows, Red Alert, bringing them back to Philly on the Amtrak and listening to hip hop on that Amtrak ride. I called it the Divorce Express because my mom lived in New York and my dad lived in Philly. So, yeah. And I had a mom who especially didn't push traditional kind of money making values. You know, she always said art over money, you know, so at a very young age, I was taught that you shouldn't aspire just for financial success.
That's amazing. And Milo, you grew where you grew up was like downtown, right? So it was like a mixture of all social economic classes. Like there was middle class, but then like you had like part of the ghetto there too. So you got to see it all.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how Center City, Philadelphia was and still is to a certain extent. But like there'd be like one middle class block and then the next block over is like the projects or definitely the next economic class down or up, you know, so you're really intertwined and you see all types of different social classes and people when you grow up in that kind of environment. And then my dad was a sociologist at Temple University in North Philly. So that's a campus that's in a very kind of lower class neighborhood, lower income neighborhood. So I spent a lot of time, you know, with him on the campus growing up and getting to see that, you know, that side also.
How do you think you guys were influenced or affected by growing up in Philly under those circumstances?
I think it allowed us to kind of be able to like explore and, like, being into the different cultural stuff we were into, of like sports and gear and starter jackets and sneaks and, all that different stuff, like the cultural part. But then also, you're a teenager and that's like the highest, when you're most kind of, absorbing everything. So I think it affect, being that we did have those parents who were, allowing us to, look at everything, so I think that was, and just this, part of it also just kind of the Quaker education that we had like 50 kids in our class and it was like, like 3 black kids, 3 Asian kids, like 2 Indian kids, like, you know, Jews and everything. It was like all together. And so it was like that shaped it also, all those things, like the time and just everything that was going on around us, I think.
So very diverse. And you guys were growing up amongst so many different types of people and really like learning and pulling from everybody.
Yep, definitely in the household and outside of the household. Like when you grow up and your parents are teachers, you definitely, and especially that time, like late 70s, early 80s in Philadelphia was like a very like conscious kind of liberal movement where people were kind of free with things and even sexual things. It was like a lot of like, I'm sure all over the country, but especially in this little bubble we lived in, we had very eclectic kids in our classes. Parents were just very eclectic and out there and gay and straight and just like, so we were exposed to a lot of stuff early, but like good things, like not like hardcore, like cocaine and all that stuff, but just more like cultural awareness.
Well, and it was an interesting time for you guys to be growing up in because it's like right off of the civil rights movement too, though, right?
Yeah, now you see it, like only in the last like 8 to 10 years, I'm 53, Milo's like 53, I guess now too, right? And we exactly like when you're in first grade and it was 1976. And this is like 8 years after the Civil Rights Act, right? And you're in this. It was like Friend Select was like a place where it was like, here, we're gonna make it like this is what utopia is, and like we're gonna we had this education where everything was like a committee and nonviolent, and again, like everyone was different in our class, and so it was like we were served up, and at the time, right into it. And now that things are the way they are, and you really see that you were kind of coming off the wave of the civil rights movement, and everything, and including our involvement in hip hop, and like the mid late 80s also comes from that too.
And for you, Milo, with your dad being a sociology professor, right?
Yeah.
That brought more consciousness into the household as well.
Yeah. And my dad was also like best friends with this very historic jazz musician. And my dad ended up writing a book and doing a documentary about this bass player named Milt Hinton. So that was also always in my childhood, and going to see these jazz classics and hanging out with guys like that and Dizzy Gillespie. And so like my dad was also introducing me to like a very pure form of black music early in my, I always say my dad has way more street cred than I do.
It's an interesting thing, right? Because people say that children are so innocent. They don't know about racism. They're taught racism, right? And from a young age, when you're fostering this environment for them, kids don't care about what color the other kid is. They just want to play with the other kids, So for you guys to be growing up in this diverse environment, this population and everything, it was very influential for you guys to appreciate so many different cultures and be, I guess, like have a bigger worldly view.
We also had 4 parents who were into that part of Judaism in that era of standing up for people who were being oppressed. You know what I mean? So we definitely grew up in households where that was known. You stick up for African Americans and people who are being picked on. And that's how I grew up thinking that all Jews were.
And that was an interesting thing, because at that time, at one time when Jewish people came to America, it wasn't like you guys were considered white necessarily right off the bat. Like, you guys faced a lot of racism, prejudice as well, right?
Yeah.
So like at that time that you guys were growing up, did you guys face, that kind of discrimination?
No, actually, like I mentioned it before, we were living in this bubble. And even though it was right in the middle of Philadelphia and crime happening and all this shit, we lived in this little kind of like middle class bubble where we went to this school that Eric's talking about, and it was diversified and you learned the right things. And I honestly like didn't experience anti-Semitism probably into my 20s.
Wow.
I had one incident where I was in Rittenhouse Square, which is like the most shishi neighborhood in Philadelphia. And, this is like 88 or so. And I had a Public Enemy t-shirt, and like skinheads came up to me and ripped and were like, they say black is back, all in, we're going to win. And I was like, like, I didn't know what the fuck was happening. And they like kind of attacked me and like ripped it off me. And like, I remember like being like, what the fuck just happened? And it was like, so ironically, like it, that was like a violent thing that happened to me, like basically the only thing.
But I don't remember them ever like bringing up Judaism. I remember in that situation, they were like more angry that we were white kids.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was more some white nationalist shit. Yeah,
right.
Probably. Yeah, at that point, we didn't know the difference.
So you guys ended up meeting at what, like 8 years old?
3rd grade, however old you are in 3rd grade.
Yeah, 3rd grade.
And it's so amazing that you guys have been best friends for so many years and able to accomplish hip hop history with your best friend, essentially, right? Like, you know, and it's crazy. So like, what is like your first impressions of each other when you guys meet each other?
But I think I hosted what it is. I used to host people like, you know, you would have your little Quaker school and like Milo's parents would whatever contact and be like, okay, well, why doesn't Milo come in and he'll spend a day? And so like that day I was his host. So like little 8-year-old Eric like hosted him. So it was like, hey, what's up? You know, and like we were just like hung out for the day. And like, you know, he just rolled with all the stuff, you know, with all the people that were there. Like we're still, you know, we have like 4 or 5 dudes that we still know. You know, one other was still back then. A couple others came a little bit later in school, but you know, like we did that, and then he came in 4th grade. So then he reappeared in September of 4th grade, and it was like, oh, so it was, you know, it was dope. That's, you know, I
They
think we
knew
just, yeah,
they knew to use Eon as the host because
that
he
was
would
good.
reel the new kids in. Like they
Yeah,
knew
that
that
was good. I had a
he was the
good.
guy.
I actually did that throughout my career, and everyone I would bring in, Kenny Weaver, you know,
No, we hit it off
Tame
right
One.
away. Just this one day where he hosted me, I was like, that's where I want to go to school.
Wow. So an interesting thing is that basically, you guys went to school with John Schechter, right? Who is the co-founder of the Source magazine. And at one point, he's like, what? He's like 4 years older than you guys.
Yeah.
So you're in 8th grade. He's like in 12th grade, and he's going off to Harvard, right? And so then he becomes like, he starts sending you things to review for the Source magazine. So like you're barely like what, 13? No, wait, I'm sorry. What?
Probably
how old at the time?
17, 16.
Yeah, whatever, you know, but like you're not even out of high school and you're
Right.
reviewing these albums already and writing up things.
Remember that?
So what was that like for you at that time?
It was crazy because like the rest of the hip hop industry, like the Source was like the Bible, man. You would like read it over and over again. It started as just like this kind of zine or pamphlet. And like the one thing about golden era hip hop is it's still kind of like a mysterious genre. Like you still have to read the back of the album to learn about the group and stuff like that. So the Source was like, you would just absorb all the knowledge, all these little hip hop tidbits and shit. And you would just live for the little pictures of like Q-Tip in the studio with Mace from De La, and they're making Buddy and they're sampling samples for Buddy. And you're like, oh my God. So Eon and I definitely started as fans first, hardcore hip hop fans, you know. Then we went to the Beastie Boys Public Enemy show in '87. And that changed us to be like wanting to do it as artists. But yeah, sorry, I got off track a little.
Writing for the Source.
Right. So I would take the article to John Schechter's father's office. He was like a big time Philadelphia lawyer in the very early days of faxing. So we would fax the articles off to Scheck at Harvard, and that's how I would get it to him. And then, yeah, I was like living a dream, you know, even though like he would assign me maybe not the hottest records to review.
So what year is it that you're writing for them exactly?
This is 89, 90.
Okay, so like are they still the single sheet, or they're in the magazine phase already at that point?
Yeah, they're like in the magazine stage, but it's probably just like a 20-page magazine still.
Got you. Okay. And man, like that's just amazing, because I remember I heard you talk about like you would get albums in advance. So like you would be listening to it for like 8 months already, the new brand Nubian. Next thing you know, by the time people get to listen to it, you're already tired of the album because you have been listening to it forever already.
Yeah, it was the greatest thing ever. But then also maybe once the rest of the world caught up, you'd be like, oh man, I know about this song, but it was incredible having these albums early. I tell this one story about we're freshmen in college and we get the Black Sheep album early, the first Black Sheep album, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. And
oh, that's right.
And we go to this college expo where they're performing. And at this time, they only had the first single out, but in the meantime, and something else. but we have had the whole album for months. So we're screaming in the audience album cuts. Whatever one of the other songs is. And Drez is looking at Mr. Long like, yo, like, how do these kids like know our album? We're lucky we didn't get beat up on some bootlegging shit.
Wow.
DJ days.
So like, what age do you start writing rhymes? Like, do you decide like, hey, I really want to be a rapper?
Well, like Miles said, we went to in April of '87. We went to the Murphy's Law, Public Enemy, Beastie Boys show, and we walked in, and it was like My Uzi Weighs a Ton, and it's like I can't say the visceral reaction to like the bass and like walking in and just like it was just this whole thing, like your whole body was like absorbing it, and then you just looked and it was like Chuck D and Flav and them, and they had like the suspenders like drooping down, I'll never forget, and like Professor Griff and them, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? It was like like My Uzi Weighs a Ton, I remember, and then then they played like Public Enemy #1, and like the noises and everything, like were like crazy, and like the samples, and it was just like, oh my god. So like the next day, and then we saw the Beastie Boys, obviously, it was Murphy's Law, PE, and then the Beastie Boys, and then I think it was like the next day. So that was April like 17th or something. And then we went to like Sound and Market or something. And like we both bought, like, I don't think my like DJing per se. But we bought, like, I bought like that single, Public Enemy #1. And we had the instrumental. We were like, and then what it was is of May, within 1 month, we had our talent show at Friend Select, and we were freshmen, and in May of '87. So within 30 days of being at the Spectrum, we were on stage kicking whack shit, like whatever the hell we were. And that's the cover of, which one is that? Did we use that for? Super Sound? That's like one of the pictures that we used, literally from that. So we were like 30 days after we saw this, we had written something, and I wrote something about like the Mets and something, and we performed at the show over Public Enemy #1. And that's what it was. It was like an immediate like effect. Like we just, you're 16, and it was like this thing. It was just like, finding your older brother's like electric guitar and like drums, and like just going off. It was like that, because no one had ever seen anything like that. We had never, seen any music or anything like that. And we were young. We were like 14 or whatever. So 15. So we were having these experiences,
So at that time, are you going by MC Magnum?
No, the first one was E-Man, which was a comic book. And in the shirt, in that picture, I have a Mets hat on. And then I have a orange shirt that says E-Man that I bought at Fat Jack's Comic Crypt in the comic book store. And so I was E-Man for like that performance. And then I think over the summer, we were just like into it. And then that's what I think it was MC Magnum. Like, or actually I was General E, for like 5 minutes, and then MC Magnum, so then MC Magnum, which I went into, I think at some point through high school into college, because I think people knew me as Magnum right when I went in to college.
And Milo, you were going by Jace or something like that along those lines at first. Is that right? I read in an interview that you had said, like, based off of your middle name, right, Jason?
I think that might have been my graffiti tag, but I think I was always Mighty Mai, actually, man. Well, actually, DJ Mai.
Right, DJ Mai.
I have a hat still. When you get the letters, ironed onto the hat, the wool hat at DJ Mai. So maybe I was DJ Mai for a second. Actually, in those same shows Eon's talking about, when we performed at the talent shows, there's a banner and the picture says DJ Mai. But I
That's
think those,
another cover. That's another
right.
cover that we did. So yeah, those are 2 talent shows that we did.
So you eventually find out that you were not destined to be an MC, right, Milo?
Very quickly. Very quickly.
And what exactly like stood out to you that you weren't supposed to be?
Well, our very first assignment, even before me and he did those talent shows, we did a talent show before that in 9th grade or something where I tried to rhyme also. And I couldn't. Well, this is even earlier. I think this is middle school. And everyone wrote their rhymes. And then my rhymes were like Curtis Blow's rhymes on the back of his album. I like wrote them down and pretended it was bass. I knew very early that hands-on experience was going to be my only verse ever on vinyl.
Got you. So then you guys would go to shows at the Spectrum in Philly, right? And you saw Jam Master Jay performing, and it really captivated you and inspired you to be a DJ.
Yeah, I mean, we went to those shows and like I would totally admire Jam Master Jay because he was known for never making mistakes. And I remember Chuck D reading an interview with him, and he said, we picked Terminator X because we wanted the closest thing to Jam Master Jay. And Terminator X would never make mistakes live. And so that's why we rolled with Terminator X. So and Jam Master Jay had the greatest bass rub. And in those shows in the Spectrum, which is what really shaped me and E, that was a huge thing of those shows. So the 808 is one thing you would feel in your chest, but the second thing you would feel in your chest are the bass scratches, you know, the DJ's cutting up the actual kick drum. And Jam Master Jay's was known for being just so solid. But anyone who's at those shows knows that Jazzy Jeff would steal the whole show.
Right.
He would be the number one superstar in the arena. Well, I guess like LL Cool J and stuff, but like when it was time for Jeff to do his routine, that was like the highlight of the whole night, you know, maybe because we were in Philadelphia, but yeah, those early Spectrum shows were just so like we would talk about them for weeks after. Remember, we would go to school the next day, we would still be like high from it.
Yeah.
And you guys both worked at Foot Locker?
Yes. For one summer.
Yeah.
Right. Summer of 88, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Milo, you saved up for the techniques,
Right.
the turntables.
Right.
And then I remember reading that you said you would DJ at the DMC and when later on, and it was your chance to impress Red Alert.
Yeah.
Right.
Red Alert's like the godfather of the golden era, you know? So there were so many records he played that were just so, when you would buy them, you would just like associate that record with Red Alert because you heard it on his show and it was, you know, just a 12-inch that would never have an album. But his taste in hip hop was so perfect. Even when he would play album cuts from like the Jungle Brothers or Tribe, he would always pick like the choice album cut to play. So, of course, I wasn't good enough to compete in those DMCs, but I would get hired to DJ in between the DJs or in the beginning and at the end, and he would host them. So I would make sure that I was breaking out the obscurity for him, and he would come up to me and go like, damn, I can't believe you're playing this. And I'd say, I learned it from you, man. So those were hip hop like highlights for me when I could kind of show my knowledge of hip hop, you know? I didn't necessarily have like the greatest skills that were going to be Hall of Fame skills, but I could say, hey, I have some good taste and I know my shit.
You know, and what's amazing about that is that was kind of your way of paying homage too to those that came before you, because you're paying respect to Red Alert. You know, like I learned this from you and being able to tell him that.
Well, the High and Mighty records are all about paying homage. I mean, you know, from the meaning on, when we did the Still Number One to Me with all those obscure groups. But like, we've always just been true fans that happen to make hip hop, you know?
I thought it was so funny that you chose your college based on the record stores in the area. So you decided to go to Boston University, right?
Yeah.
Well, E, what was your reasoning for choosing Boston?
Well, I went to Northeastern my freshman year, and it was just like the best, I think, city school. I wanted to go somewhere in a city, so it was there or Temple. So I think I wanted to get out of Philly, and so there. But then by sophomore year, I didn't like Northeastern, and so I went to I was at BU as well.
Got you. And in college, Milo, you saved up for the MPC 60, and that's when you learned to start making beats, right?
Right. It was the other way around back then. You would save up your DJ money with the aspirations of finally getting a drum machine. Now the producers make beats because they want to DJ. At least in the house music world, it's like that. I'm not sure in the hip hop, but like, so it's changed. But yeah, back then, like the drum machine was like 2,500, which just felt like the most insurmountable money to save up back then. But yeah, finally college.
It was
Then on the back of
2,500 then?
Yeah.
Which is like probably like 5,000 or something now, right? Like
Right.
that's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I would always thank my grandfather on the back of the albums because he lent me the money to buy the first, like, it was called an ADAT machine.
Right.
It would make the recordings like to the next level where they were like recording level, like you could make a record with the vocals and stuff. So
Did you get that in Long Island or
no, in Staten Island from this
there you
this
go.
very famous house DJ named Anthony Acid. Me and my dad took the Staten Island ferry out there, which I don't think you can put cars on anymore, and went out there and got it used. But now we could make the high and mighty. We didn't have to use studios to record anymore. Now we could make the demos, record quality sounding.
When that ran you like 1,200, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Wow. See, so that was definitely an
Lot of them, too.
investment.
Yeah, though they were like 2,200 new, so...
Yeah. So then in your senior year of college, Bobito, right? He comes to Boston University and someone brings him to your apartment and you start rapping for him. And that's how you guys get invited to Stretch and Bob show.
Yeah, we met them. I guess it was something where there was Bobito was trying to talk to some girl who we knew who was like friends with someone and something.
Yeah.
There was a party, right? Fran and Kibi, and like I just like ended up like we were all talking and he was like, spit some shit. And I just did rapped and he liked it. And, I had like probably some of my witty, weird shit. And he was like, okay. And so he was like, yeah, man, I want you to come down to the show. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, like this is like someone saying that I was good, that I could be on that show. Like it was just unbelievable to me.
And then you guys ended up doing like some of the promos for them, right?
Yeah.
So at this time, did you guys already choose the name High and Mighty? Or because I know you came up with it, right, E? You came up with the name?
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I think we were at this point. I'm pretty sure. We had other names back in the day, but I think we were the High and Mighty from, like in college, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I figured out pretty early, like that was a good way to get in with a radio show that you really liked is like you do a promo for them. You know what I mean? And it's, what do they have to lose? You're giving it to them for free and you try to make it good. But that was also influenced from Golden Era Radio and Red Alert and hearing JBC Force and all these people do promos for Red Alert and Molly Mall. And so, yeah, I always say that one night in Boston where Eon rhymed for Bobito was really like the pivotal event that made us become like a group that put records out. Because like Eon said, it was just that little confidence that we needed. And to get it from Bobito, you got to understand the Stretch and Bobito show was like it then. That was the premier place that you wanted to get on. So Bobito inviting Eon onto the show was like huge.
And this is 93. So this is like right when all this other people are getting invited. So it was like, what? It was just crazy. Yeah.
And Eon was still in his style then, like had the Akinelli influence, where everyone was rhyming like da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, like a lot of weird like inflections. Yeah, if you listen to that first John, it's a bones a lot, there's a bones a lot, there's
Right.
bones a lot. Yeah, so it's
Very
great.
animated.
Yeah, man. That's a 93 shit.
Yeah.
And Milo, I've heard you say in the past that like you're very grateful for them because like Bobbito could have hated on you or Stretch could have hated on you if they wanted to, right? But they didn't.
Well, I was also introducing myself to Stretch through the nightclub scene. So that's really where he could have hated on me. Mm-hmm. This promoter at the time who was doing all the downtown New York stuff, his name is Bill Spector. Shecky introduced me to him and said, hey, I got a DJ for you. He's moving to New York from Boston. So this promoter put me on, and Stretch was also DJing for this promoter. So that's right where Stretch could have really hated on me, but he didn't. And he welcomed me and he was nice to me. And so that was a big thing because he was kind of known not for being that welcoming.
He took a liking to you.
Yeah, we got lucky, So we had a relationship with them on the radio show, but we also had a relationship with them in the whole nightclub scene.
Mm-hmm. How would you guys describe being white in hip hop at that time? What was it like?
It was definitely completely different from, in terms of other whites. You were like a rebel. Like no white kids not really liked hip hop. I'm not talking about NWA in '89 when all the white kids liked that. I'm talking like 3-4 years before that. It just wasn't, like we were wearing like, polo stuff and like we just wanted to dress like that and like puffy, jackets and stuff like that. And we just took to it. And rapping was not, like I guess those ones, like it was like I got laughed at. It was like, what are you trying to do? And it was like, of course, like the wigger, called a wigger, and like, what are you doing? And it was just completely, that was like the way it was. Maybe 87 by 90 and 91, it was a little different, And then you're talking about how was it to perform. I remember another time, like there was some kind of dance or something at our school, and it was, remember John Straughter, Stacey Straughter's brother,
right?
And like in some way, and there was like all these like either West Philly kids, and we just kind of didn't know any better. And again, like maybe it was because we were just from Friend Select, and these kids, we just were there, and like we didn't think of anything other than we were, but we were like the only white kids doing it. And then in Boston, that's when I remember rapping with like people who were like real dope and like not being intimidated. I had nothing to be, a little bit of like being white was just, when you went to that level and you were the only white dude. Like I remember this, was it dude KT? Who's that? Yeah, he was dope, but he was very cool. And again, they were like welcoming. So I never had anything where it was like, oh, it was more by the white people, more like by our white, like peers, not like our boys, but like others who, were like that. And I remember we had this one girl who made fun of us all the time. And then, she was 2 years younger. And then 2 years later, we saw her and she like loved Tribe Called Quest. And I was Dana Marinucci, and I was like, this girl used to make fun of us all the time, and then was like into hip hop. So I always thought, it was kind of dope that we were just a little bit ahead of it. We would go into the Spectrum, and it would be 12,000 people, and I don't know if we would see really any other white kids. So
yeah, it became like less taboo each year,
Mm-hmm.
But definitely in those beginning, going to those concerts, definitely. And then the people in our high school would definitely like make fun of us for the kind of music that we liked, because they were like the Smiths and, you know, alternative rock, and like they made fun of us for liking hip
The
hop.
Hooters.
Right. So they made fun of us all the way up until the point we actually did it professionally, you know. Then you know, they weren't making fun of us anymore. But all these girls that were in our grade, they were like, I can't believe you like that shit.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is 88, 89. No, they were not into it. Like then some kids who were like some white dudes got into NWA, like John Kramer and Steve and people like that. See, then it was just like everyone, you know, got much more popular.
What was the reaction like for you guys when you guys saw Beastie Boys come out?
Well, that was ultimately you said you could do it, you know.
Yep.
That was like, you know, them and, you know, and John, you know, John Schechter. And, you know, they had their group, you know, BMOC, him and, you know, Kevin Krakauer. And they were, you know, again, they were in 12th grade when we were in 8th grade. But I remember like that summer, and they played with their DJ Kid Swift, rest in peace. They played at this place called MSP, the most serious place. And that's where we literally saw them perform. So it was a combination of seeing them, which was just basically one little mini generation, and the Beastie Boys all like within like a year-ish. So that, you know, then it was just like, you know, and just I guess who we were, like we didn't really care. So we would just, you know, like we just kept doing it and like, you know, whatever.
You know, when I interviewed Benzino, he said that back in the day, they didn't care that the Beastie Boys were white. Do you agree with that? That hip hop overall, like they accepted the Beastie Boys, even though that they were white, it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big problem at all.
Oh, well, everyone thought they were Puerto Rican in the beginning.
Okay.
So I guess that's a little flattering. Like a bunch of times people would come up to us and go like, damn, like I thought you guys were black before I saw you perform. So that happened to us too. But yeah, like I think the beginning, everyone thought they were Puerto Rican. And then like, how can you deny them? I think a rule when whites, you know, do black music, like if you're dope enough, then it doesn't matter.
Right. And they were just with Run DMC. Like they're just like probably spent 2 years touring with them. Every picture you saw was all of them together.
Right. Our friend the Alchemist doesn't really matter because he's achieved what he's achieved in hip hop. So after a while, you know,
yeah, it doesn't matter that he's from Beverly Hills or anything like that, from the Hooligans, from back, you know, it's just like he's just so dope that talent is undeniable, basically.
Right. His contributions have outweighed his skin color or upbringing or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. Tell us how you guys came up with the idea to start Eastern Conference Records.
I thought we kept doing songs in Boston. You mentioned Benzino. We had like this thing where we were in the studio the same time as RSO. And like we did songs, like we did 3 or 4 songs in Boston. And then we did more songs. And then we did, you know, different ones that led right up into, you know, It's All For You. You know, so like you could like it just kept getting like the songs kept getting better. And then, you know, my can, you know, talk about it like connecting with certain people like in the, you know, kind of the fat beats world. We just thought and had the foresight, you know, to not like remember groups then like signed to fat beats. So all you had to do, like all we did was say, well, we're already signed. We have a label, and we made it up and Eastern Conference Records. And then So when we went to them with these songs, we were on a label. We were on Eastern Conference Records, which was our label. So like we had that foresight to kind of control, have it that, we owned everything. We weren't on a label. We were the label. So I think that's why initially, that's why we did it to start. That's really how it started.
Was there like an epic buildup to coming up with the name, or it was just kind of like Eastern Conference, that's what we want, that's it?
No, we did. I remember like Mike hooked up with someone through his sister or something with the logo, and like that all happened probably, I don't know, like I might be completely, it must have been within like months. Like we must have had a couple songs, played it, someone liked it, and been like thought of this and like had to get everything together within something. I know it came out November of '96. So at some point, why I'm saying all this is like we kept doing songs and like finally it was like ding, 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 ding. These are good enough. Like we're good. And like here, you would listen to some of these ones before you might be like, we've recently been listening to them. They're like, some of them are pretty funny and like different like samples and funny stuff. But, we got to that point. I think we just came up with that because we wanted to own everything.
Got you.
Also, the name initially is like a sports reference. So that was the theme of a bunch of our early stuff and continued to be, is this kind of crossover with sports because we were such big sports fans too. So Eastern Conference Records, of course, is just like an ode to the Eastern Conference, in sports. But yeah, I think initially, like also we did it because in the very beginning, it was the way for us to put out High and Mighty, and then it grew there, and it just became so fun to run, man, and signing other groups and putting stuff and making T-shirts and doing runs out to Brooklyn to the T-shirt place and going up the Jersey Turnpike to pick up our 5,000 records and delivering them to Fat Beats Distribution. Like we were very two-man crew, hands-on type shit.
Right. Did you guys, you mentioned RSO earlier. You guys had early interactions with them?
No,
just in the studio.
Yeah.
And then I had some interactions with Benzino when I would go visit Shecky at the Source. And then
so at
my
that time, was he
favorite
running it yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
This was before Shecky left. But my favorite Benzino story is when we were still in Boston, we get invited to, I think it was me and my friend Justin Hoffman. I don't think he was at this one thing. And we get invited to go to a Milkbone, the artist Milkbone, Panda?
Right.
We go to get invited to go to a Milkbone video shoot at a nightclub in Boston, and Ray Benzino is directing the video.
Wow.
And so we go down there, and Kid from Kid and Play is managing Milkbone, so he's there too. And everything's, going the way a video shoot should go, and everyone's just like, I think we're just extras in the club, I don't even know if we're on camera. We're just watching. And all of a sudden you hear, "Says, cut." And you see Benzino hitting some guy over the head with a trash can. And that's the end of the video shoot.
Wait, so it wasn't in the video. He just got mad at somebody and hit somebody with a trash can.
Now he's directing the video. He just does this random act of violence, and that's the end of the video.
What was your reaction when that happened?
Just kind of like stunned, like I couldn't believe.
Everyone like run out, or like what happened?
Yeah, people ran out. But it was just crazy because he was directing it.
It's so funny because when you started to smirk a little bit when you said Benzino, I already knew. I was like, oh man, he's got a good story coming right now. I just know, I could tell. I got love for Benzino, but I just know, like, with certain things, I'm like, oh man, like he's got something good that's coming right now.
Yeah, especially like when you spend time in Boston, like they were just so notorious in Boston. Mm-hmm. And I was really close with their DJ, Def Jeff. He was a sweetheart, man. He was kind of like the Funk Master Flex of Boston. And we were real cool. And so he, there was a different side of them also. And I always had good times when I would chill with Benzino personally, smoke blunts at the Source. That's what the Source was like this blunt smoking factory.
Did you guys have, did you guys ever find out why that guy got hit with the trash can though?
No, I'm sure it was just some dumb shit. Because a lot of their shit was always just like some weird drama that like, why are you,
Wow.
But Benzino's definitely kind of more personal to me, at least. I don't know about he, but just because of so much stuff that happened at the Source, Like I kind of saw it happen firsthand with Shecky, and it sucked.
You saw firsthand him leaving.
Yep. Yeah.
Can you talk about that or no?
I mean, I think it's pretty known,
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no problem. But so at one point, there's a bidding war between Rawkus and Tommy Boy, right? For you guys?
Can you believe that?
Hey, you guys were going to sign to Tommy Boy, but last minute, Rawkus offers the distribution deal for Eastern Conference, and that is the reason why you guys went with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had basically made the record. We made home field advantage on our own. Besides B-Boy Document, the remix, and maybe one or two others, we really had the whole thing done. And we, paid for it, we made it, and we owned it. And so when first, we were going to sign with Tommy Boy, but then, we were lucky enough to get involved with, through Shecky, Paul Rosenberg, who basically, he's Eminem's manager. I think people know that. And he went and worked with Rawkus and got us, not just that, but, got us, 3-album deal and singles. And, so it really was dope because we were doing the same thing Rawkus was doing. And, in 97, 98, that was like the pinnacle of selling physical media. And, culminating in 1999 when our record came out. So we were also in the right place at the right time with people, Rawkus getting money and, through priority and everything. So we, but I remember, meeting with Jared and, Brian and Jared, the owners of Rawkus. And I remember them like having the B-Boy Document and like holding it, and for some reason them being like, this is something like we would put out, and that's why we like really love it. Everything you're putting out is like what we would do, so it makes sense. And so it did, because we were our own A&R, and we could come with stuff. And then we also had the Smut Peddlers, which was the second album, so they knew that they had at least two things, and we were a good investment.
Mm-hmm. And Paul Rosenberg was your guys' like manager early on, right? Pretty much, or was he just a lawyer?
He was our manager, and we had the song with Eminem done. When we're talking about this bidding war, so like we're delivering this album that has Mos Def on it, Eminem and Pharoah Monch and Kool Keith, like so it was kind of. That held weight, it always does when you bring a label, a finished product, So I think that was big for us.
How did you guys meet Paul?
He was just like on the scene back then. Like he was living in New York, so he was like kind of part of that indie fat beat scene. It might have initially been through Sheck. I forget exactly, but I think it was just. You remember he?
Yeah, I think it was through Sheck, because I think, when him and Paul linked up, I remember just being, that was right when, he was, with them at that point. And
so that's right. Shecky had invested in Paul.
Right.
Like Paul was just like a corporate lawyer, like hating his life, but also managing Eminem.
Yeah.
So Shecky said, hey, why don't I invest in you? And you could leave your law firm and just concentrate on Eminem 100%. And then I'll, in return, have a back end of Eminem. Pause. And I don't even do pause. I don't know why I did that. So, but that's so Shecky and Paul had just started this new partnership, and then he was managing us also. So,
how long did he end up managing you guys for?
I think until he just got too busy, and then we got handed off to Theo Settlemeyer, who's gone on to be a tremendous success in the industry. I think he's Drake's lawyer.
Wow. Gotcha. Yeah, so in 99, you guys released Home Field Advantage, your debut album, right? And you got, like you said, Pharoah Monch, Evidence, Mos Def, Cage, Kool Keith, Thurston Howell, right? And of course, Eminem. What I thought was crazy about that album, though, is the skit with Paul Rosenberg on there, right? And so it's like, did you guys record that skit? Because it says recorded from 97 to 99. So did you do the skit before M started doing skits with Paul?
I think so. Like I don't know if
Is this another historical influence and moment that you guys had?
I don't know, because M's album came out before ours, didn't it?
Right. It came out in February of 99.
Right.
But if you guys recorded during 97 to 99, I don't know if you guys had recorded that skit already. That's what I'm asking.
No, but it was just we were so ignorant. We were like we're going to do an AO skit, and like with him, like so I don't know. We asked him, he just did it. Like it's it's so great. It's just funny. It's just hilarious. It's silly.
What was it like working on that album?
It was incredible. It was just a lot of meeting these peers and having these experiences and all these stories, and it was it was great, and it was very we're lucky to be able to do it, and it's a blessing, and it was, as it was happening, it was just kind of life. But then it's like, as you look at it, it's just incredible, just because we were able to be in this time and be able to participate in it, and to have a place in it. And when they tell the story of it, like they'll say, they'll mention us to whatever extent. So, it's something, it was crazy, and it was like a dream come true, to be honest.
For me, it was like finding that perfect balance of like producing, but also executive producing it. You know what I mean? And so, like, of course, I had to put my ego to the side when it came to other producers coming in and doing songs, but I knew that that's what was going to make the best product at the end, So even having other people come in and do scratches, I was just half an executive producer, half a producer, also a DJ, also working as a nightclub DJ. So like, working as a nightclub DJ in that time in New York, you were listening to these like huge, perfect records that were being made in New York. You know what I mean? And so there was like this natural kind of, a little bit, I remember in interviews back then, I used to like say like, oh yeah, we do like Jiggy Backpack, because like B-Boy Document and Dick Starbuck, they're kind of like attempts at like whatever our version of a club record is, So, so that's like kind of what we were doing. Then all these influences coming in at once, being influenced by the records we grew up on, being influenced, like we were both going to clubs 4 or 5 times a week, so there was a lot of it kind of pulling us in different directions and stuff. But I remember like, having our friend Reese do beats, and of course the Alchemist beats on the album. And it was just kind of pulling together all our friends at the time. And I remember though, like executive producing / producing was challenging, but also fun.
Right. What was it like working with M on the song The Last Hit?
I remember it was dope because we like I had my verses written. And so like when, when I like and the John's smoke my spliff, which are called spina bifida, he was right there and he wrote my 9 is lifting you, 6 feet as I spray rounds. That, so he wrote that right there. I had written it. It was like efficient, like we always were. Like I was completely prepared, 16 and then half. And so, he was Eminem. So he was just writing shit. He just went in the corner and the beat played and he just wrote his part. And then we literally wrote the hook together. Like I would do, got a bull, a hash, but a hash, and I'm gonna take it. And then when I'm flabbergasted off 2 tabs of acid, like, so he wrote that part. And like, it's
You guys
just
were
like
playing
when
well
you,
off of each other, basically.
yeah,
The
like when
chemistry
you,
was on point.
yeah, but he's, that's how he did it. He's an MC. It was just, that's the way it was. It was like, like the way it's composed, technically, the song is kind of, it's dope, like in that way. And, like then he heard, he did ad libs over mine. Like he did the Viva Gorditas. So like then he obviously like either liked that line or like that line stuck to him. And like he said, I'm going to add my, little part, the Eminem thing onto that. So, that was really dope. And then that was like the week that like and Royce was there too. And so like Royce was just sitting like hanging out. And that was like the week that they did like Bad Meets Evil and one or two other songs that Royce did, one his song, and it was like kind of ill, like a couple of the game songs, the ones that came out on.
Right, because your man Reef, he produced a lot for Royce early on.
Right, he did
Right,
the Bad Meets Evil. So,
right, so that was like the same. That was like 1 week. That all happened in 1 week.
48 hours, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like because I went to that Bad Meets Evil session, and then we recorded the last hit at my crib.
Yeah,
and Big Paul was on my little couch. And he finished, I remember he finished either a 6-pack or a 12-pack himself. He was getting more and more drunk, and he finally was like in the, fetal position on my, that's the only way he could fit on that couch. And so it was just the spectacle of that was amazing. But it's M in his absolute prime. I remember he would mess up and he would keep freestyling on the ADAT tape. I probably have it somewhere. And he would just go on for like,
wow.
Remember that shit? Like 32 bars of just freestyling incredible shit. That's to me, that's when he was at his best. But that being said, to me, Eon holds his own on the song. That's my, that's what I think about the song. Those are some of the best Eon verses.
How well did you guys know him before you guys did the song? Like, was he like really? Was that song recorded in 99 or a little bit earlier, like 97?
No, I think like
98.
98. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
so he had already created a buzz, right?
M played us his album that day.
Yeah.
So his album was already done, but if it came out in February, this was probably September of 98.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that he was going to be as big as he came to be?
I thought it was going to be pretty big with like Dr. Dre and like, we didn't hear. Did we hear My Name Is then? Like that then? Like when we did right.
We don't know. We heard his whole album.
Yeah, and it was just crazy. And so we were like, yeah, this guy's with Dr. Dre. It's going to be pretty big. And like, I think we just thought that. And, I thought he was, and he's just talented. And remember, he had done like these raucous records and stuff. Like he did stuff for Sound Bombing too. And then, he was on like that scene, like that Lyricist Lounge kind of scene too. So right from the Olympics thing into when he took off. So he was like in there.
Right. And as a person though, he was cool. Like he got like you guys were like really got
Yeah.
along. Everything was good.
Yeah.
and
And
it's just
then,
kind of. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, he was like a caricature of himself. Like you never really like were sure if this was like the real person, but like, you know what I mean? But he was, he wasn't an asshole.
And he was probably at the peak of like doing E a lot and like that. Like this was his like come up and like just having money for the first time and like all that. So, you know,
Wait, you
then
mean doing ecstasy?
yeah, like but
Oh,
when
you saw him doing it?
no, I didn't. I mean, we went on tour with him in Europe
Right,
too.
right.
So I don't know if I necessarily said like I saw it, but he rapped a lot about it, and he was, we had things where we locked down like McDonald's in Europe. So he was like, he was definitely, very outlandish. I mean, it was like the height Eminem shit, So he acted out. Yeah, he was on drugs. Like he said that. Like I'm not saying I saw it, but I saw the actions. Like he was wild. He was buck wild for sure.
What year was it that you guys toured with him? Was that 99 too?
99. Yeah.
Okay. Now our boy Copy told me to ask you guys about the Taco Bell situation.
That might be the McDonald's situation. I don't know. That's
so
what I
same
think.
thing.
Yeah, we were on a tour bus with him in Europe, and we like left the venue after one night, and we went and cars followed and were surrounding the bus, and we went to a McDonald's, and he had like a bodyguard guy and Paul, and and what was the DJ's name? What was his name?
DJ Head.
Yeah, Head. And basically there was like it was very late, and like we got led into a McDonald's, and then they closed the door. And there were people behind us. Like we were eating at a table with like like a glass, it's like McDonald's. So the whole wall is glass looking in, and people were like pounding and like taking pictures of him. So it was right at the start. It was right at the start.
McDonald's where you could look in. Not like where it is now.
Of course, like a big windows. Yeah. So that was the start of it. So it was, we saw it, we knew, and it was, it was happening. We were in the middle of it.
Man, that tour, what was that tour like for you guys?
It was fun. It was great. It was dope.
We brought out Lord Sear with us from the Stretch and Bobbito show, and he was our hype man. And then he was just, it was when AO was in just full blown usage. And
we were wild.
We were in our 20s, man. So the shit was fun.
Can you tell any untold stories from that time on that tour?
One time we were flying and Eminem was sitting right behind me on the plane. He said, "Hey, Mighty Ma, your neck needs a haircut." I guess that's not great, but
No, we had, there's countless stuff.
I mean, it's known. We cut the tour short because like Eminem had a bad like mushroom trip in Amsterdam. I mean, it's known. And so like the tour just ended and we were like, damn,
It was the best show too. We had friends who came from Philly.
Yeah.
For it was Stretch.
It was like hotel room, remember? And we were like, it was like kissing the hand of the Don, like, thank you so much for this tour, man. Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, man. And I always say, I really have this weird feeling that if like he saw us, he would know exactly who we were. I just think he's a weird hip hop dude. Like he probably knows every song he's been on. I just have this weird feeling.
He definitely knows you guys.
He would know. Right.
It's cool. We got to keep the song, Eminem's like took a lot of his songs back from that indie game. Like they took the Bad Meets Evil songs back, the two Royce and Eminem songs that had come out on Shecky's label Game. Right. Like M took those back, so we were lucky to get to keep our song with him,
Yeah.
For sure. So in 2000, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 comes out. and they put your song B-Boy Document on there, right? Now, how does that come about?
Is that John Rosner?
Yeah, we had like a publishing deal. I mean, we had signed back then, so we had like people actively trying to place our music in things. You know, so I'm not sure if that one was, actually that one might have been from Tony Hawk personally, because he was a big like hip hop fan. And I remember there being like a cool story behind that one. But a lot of the times, like I remember telling our yo, my dream is to have a song or is to collect a check from HBO, because we were both just huge HBO stans, still are, you know. And so the next thing you know, he's like, fellas, I got us a cage placement in The Wire. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
You know, so simpler times.
So when they approached you about putting that song for Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, what was your guys' reaction?
I don't think we understood really what it was like at that point. I mean, a little bit, but for sure, it like I don't think anyone knew how big it would be, because only like over the years that I have, especially like, you know, coming back into it, being like, oh, yeah, like that's B-Boy Doc, like, you know, Tony Hawk, you know, that game, like people are so like this whole other group of people know us from that. And so like that's kind of cool. I think for me, I kind of got that later in life. Like as it was happening, like I wasn't really playing the video game. So, you know.
What if I told you, Panda, though, that it's our second biggest video game moment?
Right.
It definitely turned the most people onto the song in our group. So Tony Hawk is, but what if I told you that there's something out there that exists that means even more to us?
What's that?
We were part of the Echo. You remember Echo clothing brand?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We were part of an Echo Madden, secret Madden team on one of the Madden, Maddens.
Like Madden 99 or something.
Yeah. And we're part of this hip hop team that you can unlock. And it's like the Beat Nuts are on the team and the Alcoholics.
Oh my God.
And we're secondary. And it's Smut Peddlers. It's me, Cage, and Eon. And I'm like a safety. And I'm like,
I'm a punter.
Wow.
So that's my number one career highlight.
Yeah, I have a picture of the character with the name under it, like on a TV.
Oh, yeah, because I took video of my friend out here in Vegas, this guy, DJ Presto. He has every video game ever. So I'm like, yo, man, do you have the 99 man? He's like, yeah, we unlocked it. I was taking video of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But to your point, E, that it's so crazy, like you said, because like there are people that don't know High and Mighty, but they know every word of that song.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. What was the making of that song like?
Well, you know, it happened in all those different stages where we did the first B-Boy Document, you know, over the different beat. And that's when Mos Def rhymed with LP on the same song. I still like to brag about that Eastern Conference was the only label that had a song with the both of them together on it. And I think that also pissed Raucus off when going back to the Raucus thing, like us having this song with their two biggest artists on it on a posse cut. They're like, fuck, we got to scoop these Eastern Conference boys up. Yeah, so what were we talking about before that?
The making of the song.
Oh, yeah. So there was the first recording that we did in Unique Studios in New York. Everybody got $500 for their verse. And then when we got signed to Raucus, they said, yo, last minute, we need a song for Sound Bombing 2. And we had just signed Mad Skills too. So we brought our crew and we said, let's use this same Mos Def verse. He went into the studio, did the chorus, because that chorus wasn't on the original one. So that was the only new thing. And that's interesting. On the low, we never cleared that sample. And it's a cover of a Grandmaster Flash record. That's so crazy. You know, he's interpolated an old record on the chorus. So that was the second phase of redoing it for Sound Bombing. And I remember our boy Drew back then, he used to do our merchandise on tour. We went up, we played it for Ruckus. We came back down onto Broadway. He said, so how'd they like it? And we did the old like Broadway show, like movie where we go like, they loved it.
Yeah.
Because they did. And then so we mixed it real quick and they made it a single. And then that became kind of one of the things we got into a fight about them is like they used B-Boy Document as a single to promote Sound Bombing, and then kind of wanted to use it to promote our album too. But our album ended up coming like 6 months later, so it didn't really make sense.
Mm. So with you guys having previous history with Paul Rosenberg, you worked on the song with M and toured with M, and you guys had the connections to Cage. Like, were you guys actively trying to squash that situation between them during that time?
I don't know actively. I don't think so. I think it was kind of they were independent of each other. I remember having, we obviously had the relationship with Cage first and did stuff with him, and then, having this. But, I remember it and me and my talking and being like, we got to do this for the record and it was going to, uplift everything. It was going to uplift, our group, our album, the label, ultimately, even getting Cage more exposure. But then I remember like we had to tell him and everything, and it was a little weird, but I don't think it was that crazy. I think I thought it wasn't that crazy. Am I wrong, Man?
No, I mean, like collabing was a big thing back then. So like we weren't part of that beef, So then like, of course, us becoming like in a group with Cage. I mean, even though the Smut Peddler single came out after we recorded it with Eminem also. Just like, I don't know. It just like Cage kind of understood, and it should have been a bigger deal, I guess. But it was like, damn, they have both of them on their album. That was the big deal.
Yeah.
But then like, I've heard Cage talk about it that like on tour, when you guys were on tour with M overseas, that M tried to talk to you guys about squashing it with Cage.
I don't remember that.
I don't either. No. I don't even remember it coming up.
Yeah, it never came up. Like we never in any way, like we barely talked to Eminem, so it never came up at all.
Because I know on the song Bottom Feeders, like off of the Smut Peddlers album, right? Cage even dissed M's wife at the time, Kim, on there.
Yeah.
So did that kind of affect your guys' relationship with Paul and M or anything like that?
No, I think M was off to bigger things by then.
Yeah.
But from your guys' experience, did you feel that Cage did he have a good point that he felt like M had bit his style?
A little bit. I mean, I understand like when people heard both of them just because they were both white and had like some outlandish shit, but I thought they were completely different. So I get some of it, but I thought they were different. So I don't know.
I do think that opening Eminem line where it's influenced by Cage, in it Against the Machine like Rage, like that line that he kind of, I do believe that Eminem heard the Big Cage song, Agent Orange, and was inspired by it. We all were. That was like a classic record of that time. I remember seeing Cage for the first time at the New Eurekan. He walks in from the back to perform that, and I was like, kind of like, not starstruck, but like, damn, like this is a moment.
It was a big moment in the underground scene.
Yeah, big. And looking back, Bobito really had his finger on the pulse. I mean, he had a whole Doom album, and I didn't really understand the magnitude of Doom back then, but I do now, so I think Eminem heard that record. I think Eminem was listening to the underground actively back then, like we all were. I think Eminem was getting sent Stretch Armstrong tapes by Paul and hearing Cage every week, and definitely influenced by the song, but not on a level of like, yo, I'm biting this guy and now I'm taking over his style. And I think that they both had nasal voices also. He sounded like Cage a little bit. People were coming up to Cage like, yo, I heard your new shit. And Cage is like, no, that's not me. So I understand all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard old Eminem interviews where he said that he didn't even know who Cage was at the time when people said that, but I guess you just never know, right? I mean, so in 2001, you guys and Cage, you guys have the Smut Peddlers album come out, right? Porn Again. And the album featured Cool G Rap, Copy, Lord Sear, Cool Keith, R.A. the Rugged Man. Can you talk about how you guys came up with the idea to form that group and the approach of the album?
Well, we had done a couple of the singles before, like the one, the whole repertoire, and then, the one with Masai Bay. And I think it was kind of, part of it was we were cool and we liked to do songs together. And then, that we were about to get like this label deal. And the second, Cage was a big, big in the underground world. And like to say that the second album is going to be the Smut Peddlers was, intriguing. And like that was, like they thought that was dope. And like, so, we kind of all did it together and, it was kind of, we all kind of had that side of us. I remember doing all the interviews and stuff at the time. And, it was a side of us and, like a big, part of, like the, sports and, uh, and hip hop and like porn and like, all that shit. Like definitely, when you're much younger and in your 20s and everything, like that was, a thing. And we had a affinity for that stuff. And, so it was dope. And we got to, have like that offshoot kind of thing, so it was pretty good.
What about for you, Milo? What do you remember from that time for that album?
Well, as far as my production, I was taking it real serious. Like I was going out to Copenhagen to visit our boy DJ Noise. He was this world champion DJ who had a show on the national station out there and had this incredible record library. So he would let me come out there with my dab machine and start recording records. So I was taking digging very seriously. And I remember I was collabing a lot with our boy Reese back then, the producer. So like my drums were taking a different kind of shape. And I just remember the production kind of sounding bigger than it did on the High and Mighty album. And I ended up producing the whole album. So it was different than High and Mighty where we had guest producers come in. But I remember it happening in spurts kind of. We'd be like kind of on Cage's clock. So he would come down from upstate. He was still living upstate. And we would record like 2 or 3 songs in a row. And then we finally got it done. I remember Raucus pushed it back once. We got so angry. And then we started recording Cage's album kind of right after that.
How did you guys come up with the idea to put Beetlejuice on that album and on the cover?
I don't even remember how we linked up with him, but
Didn't Beetlejuice's manager Sean have like a whole roster of midgets or something like that at that time?
I don't know if he may have had a couple others, but yeah, Sean, I'm not sure because, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty funny, and like Sean was kind of cool, and like, that whole thing was just hilarious too. So I mean, that's a whole other thing. We were lucky to be able to, have that crazy side of everything, and it was like dirty, and grimy, so it was
Right.
dope. It was great.
Those were the times back then. Shock rap.
Right. You guys have any untold stories from the making of that album?
Just all those Beetlejuice recordings and crazy stuff, and
When you became Mighty Me, right?
right, which is so
Mr.
ironic.
Meow.
It's ironic because I was never Mighty Me again till I moved out to Vegas. People started saying, "Oh, what's up, Mighty Me?" And I'd be like, "Oh, my name's Mighty My, man." So Mighty Me ended up coming back to haunt me.
And Milo, you're getting cut off a little bit. Can you shift the camera? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's hilarious, man. So after this, you guys and Raucus kind of amicably have a separation, right? Like a fake angry meeting.
Yeah.
There was like a little bit of a cultural shift over there at Raucus at the time because Cypher Sounds was an A&R and he was at Hot 97 at the same time. So they were chasing like a different kind of sound. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. It was just time for us to go back to being independent. Yeah, they were like spending all this money on making a Cool G rap album with Pharrell beats and stuff like that. They were just kind of going in a different direction.
And then you guys ended up landing a distribution deal with Landspeed.
Yep. We were lucky enough to keep going.
You guys didn't feel like sad about leaving the Raucus situation at all?
Well, they were really on their downfall. I mean, for lack of a better word, the silent partner had pulled the money. So the evil Murdoch money was no longer funneling in. So they ended pretty quickly, actually.
Got you.
They were probably only going for another year after we left.
So then in 2002, you guys put out Cage's debut album, Movies for the Blind. What was it like working on that project?
I always say I executive produced the shit out of that album.
Yeah, that shit is dope, man. And just the beats, and like, it was great. Like, it was, he caught Mai at a great time too, of like sonically, I think, like kind of, perfecting different shit. So yeah, that one is a classic in my opinion. And so that was fun to just be there. I was there for everything. So it was dope.
That one
because you produced like 10
going.
out of 18 songs, right?
Yeah, that one kind of keeps going in history because like it's his also like lyrical culmination. And everyone had been waiting for like this Cage project, and it was definitely a leading voice in that whole indie scene, like kind of on and off recording, like the shit he was doing kind of in that scene, not just recording, bringing people together, driving people away from each other. He was, definitely behind the scenes, kind of one of the leaders.
So my brother, Vic Padilla, aka the Mighty VIC of the
No
Ghetto
way,
Professionals.
that's your real brother?
No, that's not my real brother.
Oh, wow.
I call him my brother. I mean, he's like, yeah. But he produced the song Too Much on there, right? And he told me to ask you about the story of him laying down the beat at your house.
Okay. Well, me and Vic always got along, man. And I remember he came over, right, and we laid it. And I had, like, by that time, I had kind of these newer ADATs, and I had two of them stacked up. So, like, we had 16 tracks, and I think we banged it out pretty quickly. But we might have, what does he remember? Were we smoking? Did he smoke or no?
I think he did, but...
Did he remember something specifically?
Well, he said that you had also had this like beat that you did with the Godfather sample by Los Pasles Verde or something like that, right?
I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And he said he had used it already?
No, he said to ask you about it.
Oh. Yeah, I had like a phase where I was sampling like a lot of Latin records, you know, and of course he knew every single one of them. And so I remember also he was like, oh, you have all these Los Angeles Negros records, and they had sampled a lot of them too.
And he did a lot of work with you guys, right? As far as like he mixed a bunch of songs off of Eastern Conference All Stars 4.
Yeah. He was, you know, he was one of these guys who you just trusted his ear. Yeah. And that was like a very valuable thing that you could bring in that era. Just someone who trusted your ears, you know, because sometimes when you were making it and you're playing it and you're in the clubs, like your ears kind of need a second opinion. So he was always good for making shit sound right.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Vic, man. That's my guy, man. How did you guys end up meeting him?
I think through Mike Heron. You remember him?
Right. Yeah.
Hydra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Hydra.
He's over at
done a record
Shady
on Hydra.
Now.
What's that?
He's over at Shady now, right?
Is he?
Yeah, I believe so.
We had done a record on Hydra. The one that has the Mr. C chorus. Here comes it.
MISTEREON. Sun, Moon, and Stars.
Right. This joint called Sun, Moon, and Stars that our boy DJ Jazz produced, and it has an Alchemist joint on the B-side. Okay? So it has a very early Alchemist beat on the B-side. So that's how we met that whole crew.
And do you guys have any like stories about behind the scenes about the creation of Cage's debut album?
Driving out to Staten Island to score
Dust with Rakim, not the Rakim, another Rakim.
Yeah.
Oh, dang, you guys were wild, huh?
Not really, but
that was like the only time I ever did it. It feels like you've drank 45 beers. That's what I said. Dust feels like.
What was the inspiration to do that, though?
We were just hanging. I don't know. Like, why not? We were young. That's how we do it.
Well, I want to shout out my guy Copywrite for helping set up this interview, man. That's my brother right there. How did you guys end up meeting Copy? And what was your first impression of him?
I had heard him on a Megahertz record, a group that Bobbito was putting out on Fondle. And
the famous story. The only person that you liked was him.
No, it's not. That's not true.
I'm saying though, like the play.
But Copyright loves to say that. Oh, Milo hated everyone, but he liked me. Right. I guess that was weird for him, like someone wanting to do solo work with him. I don't know. But he was half flattered, I guess, half whatever. And so, yeah. And so I was like blown away when I heard him, as a lot of people were. Like, he was just this hungry rap dude from Ohio. Then Eon turned him into a weed head, and the rest is history.
Oh, he wasn't smoking weed before that?
Nah.
I don't know. Is that what I did?
Yeah. No, but he was great, man. He was.
Yeah, he
was like he was kind of like a DOC was to end the NWA crew to EC, like writing behind the scenes and making sure records sound right. Also producing, an underrated producer, bringing Camu into the whole scene. And Camu was a pivotal part of Eastern Conference, a great producer. And so, Copy was a pivotal part. And then kind of 9/11 happened, and Copy and Camu, like, they were freaked out about being in the New York area. And so they moved back to Ohio for a while. Then I think they moved back. But that put a little wrench in our creativity.
But in 2002, you guys put out his album, The High Exalted, which is a classic. Can you tell us what you remember about working on that album?
That was another one that just kind of like had to happen when it happened. Like this guy was like bursting with creative energy, and it was his time, you know? Everyone knew it was his time. He had put out Fuck Soundcheck, which was already kind of like an indie classic. We had done that Posse cut on the B side of that. And, you know, he came up and paid his dues and had the megahertz stuff and all this stuff with RJ, and it was just his time, and he shined.
Any crazy stories about during the process of making the album?
Ian?
No, we just were generally, you know, just hanging out and smoking a lot and stuff. I think a lot of that he did like kind of independently, didn't he? Didn't he like record a lot of the stuff on his own?
I don't think so. He might have. It might have been after he had moved back to Ohio and done the vocals, but can't exactly remember. But I think, you know, Camu did a lot of it. RJ did a lot of it. I did some of it. So it was just, you know, that's what we were doing at Eastern Conference. We had the best in-house producers at the time. We had Jay Zone, RJD2, myself, Reef. So we were really Alchemist. So we were really churning out these albums pretty easily, actually, you know, as long as the rapper was prolific. We had the beats. Vic.
All right, this next one's a little controversial, okay, but the fans really want to know this one. October 31st, 2002, SOBs. You guys, Cage, Copywrite are supposed to perform, and it goes down with the demigods. Now, it's been said that 7L and Esoteric were on stage, and Eso ends the set by saying he's here all night, and if anyone has a problem, they can come and see him. Self-Titled grabs the mic and says, y'all should stick around. We got some gay rappers up soon. F Cage, F Copyright, F Homo Conference Records. They say you guys took the stage, and when Cage tried to join you guys, when he tried to join you guys, that Eso stepped to him and challenged him to a battle, which he declined. Self-Titled then appears and starts punching Cage. The show shuts down and nobody's able to perform after that. What exactly do you guys remember from that night?
I thought Cage hit him with a bottle or something.
That was a year later.
Oh, maybe that was a year later, but I don't know. Or maybe we were on stage already or something. I don't know. I don't remember them saying anything like that.
I don't remember any of that, man. I just remember that night where Cage hit him with the bottle.
Yeah, I don't remember a first other thing. I really don't
remember everything from that night, but I don't remember the other night where they were. So it was it was the Eastern Conference show, the one where Beetlejuice and all them were there, and he had the blow up doll. That was the SOB show.
I don't know if Beetlejuice was there. I know it was you guys, Cage, and Copy. And at this time, Cage was talking smack about the demigods on his forum, and they decided to drive down and basically confront, and it became like a whole thing. Now, when I interviewed Copy didn't really remember too much from this night. Apathy's account of it is that he said you guys were shook when it went down. That was his stance on it.
Dude, I don't remember any of that.
I just remember the other thing. I don't
think we were there that night, to be honest with you. Well, I don't remember any story where Cage was punched by Self-Titled.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So,
but Copy doesn't remember it either, right?
He remembers being there, and he remembers seeing them messing with Cage's hat and everything, which has been, you know, accounted for by the other side as well. But he doesn't remember any punches being thrown.
Yeah, I don't.
But the fans that were there say that it happened. Because, you know, a lot of this is like UGHH message boards, people saying like, I was there, saw it happen, and yada, yada, you know, back in those days, basically.
Sorry, man. I don't remember it happened.
I don't know if this is burnt or we weren't right there, or something, or were we on stage? I don't know.
Yeah, you guys
It's
were on
weird.
stage and Cage was making his way to join you guys when he got confronted by Esso, and Esso challenged him to battle, and Cage turned down the battle, is what they say.
And then didn't perform?
And then Self-Titled started punching him, and then the show got shut down.
Wow.
So Cage goes onto his blog the next day, and he said basically that security held him back and everything, and that, you know, they jumped on him like a whole bunch of people and stuff. So it wasn't a fair situation. He couldn't do anything. He said that there was a whole video of this thing too happening.
Wow.
But the video never came out.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't remember being right there for that, to be honest.
All right, what about the situation? Because you guys, I mean, during that whole situation between the two crews, right? You guys caught some strays in the diss songs a little bit, you know what I mean? But there was a situation that I saw Apathy said that Self had bootlegged the diss tracks that Cage did to Esoteric. And you and Milo, you were upset and calling Sandbox, Automatic, and hiphopsite.com, telling them that they couldn't sell the bootleg versions.
I don't remember, but that could have happened.
Yeah, and then the situation with the bottle. You guys were present for the bottle happening itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
What happened for that situation?
We were just backstage all night. We were backstage all night. It was one of our shows, and people were saying, yo, Self-Titled's here. And Cage was kind of like...
It came out of nowhere. Like, we didn't know
Cage was just kind of like strategizing all night, but not saying anything to anyone. Not like, yo, I'm going to hit him or anything, as I remember. But then I remember I was walking with him. He's like, hold this. And I see him pouring out the Heineken bottle. I'm like, what is this dude doing? Then just one motion, walks right over to him and cracks him right on top of the eyelid with the bottle. It's crazy.
What was your reaction when you saw that?
Like, damn, like, I didn't really like follow like all that type of shit. So it was just like, first of all, the beef was over nothing, right? Like, right. What are they beefing about?
Just like some real egotistical things early on as rappers, like, I'm the best, you know.
Nobody had sex with somebody else's wife, or it wasn't over any like real drama.
I don't really think it was really about that.
Yeah, that was the first time I had seen Cage
online, and, you know, petty stuff. Yeah, the petty stuff, really.
Right.
The forums, man, the forums.
Yeah, and the forums were the first time the fans could speak directly to the artist.
Right, exactly. So then, like, what was Self's reaction when he got hit with the bottle?
He was just kind of stunned.
Yeah, it was kind of just like a whole mishmash of shit. I don't remember it like that.
I do remember seeing it happen, though, because you remember those type of like acts of violence.
Right. So over the years, were you guys ever able to reach out to that side and like, you know, talk to them or anything? I know you guys ended up working with Esoteric eventually, right?
Yeah,
but
he
like,
came to our last show in Boston with 7L. Like, those are our people.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone remembers why anyone was beefing. So, I mean, I've never met Self-Titled in my life, so there was no relationship to repair there. We didn't know Apathy. The only people who we kind of knew in the whole thing were 7L and Esoteric, and we know them better now.
Yeah. Right. Which is dope too, because you guys worked with them on the recent album.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
With a remix from, you know, right, who does tons of beats for that crew.
Right.
So obviously shit is squashed if there was shit.
Yeah.
I honestly feel stupid, like as a 53-year-old, like talking about like that UGHH beef, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, this type of stuff is just like the fans that were there to watch it happen. They always have these like questions of what happened behind the scenes, and you see them talk about it till this day, like even if like they just bring up the name of one person, they're like, that's the dude that got snuffed by so and so
Of
back in
course.
the day.
It's our lore.
Right.
It's dope.
Yeah.
You know.
So in 2002, the Nighthawks album comes out, which is Cage and Camu Tao, right?
Right.
And you did so much production on that album, Milo, right? You guys and High and Mighty appeared on the song Bomb Beach as well. Can you talk about what it was like working on that?
Well, Bomb Beach particularly is one of my favorite songs in our catalog for some reason. I just love the vibe of it. I love that Eon verse talking about this mafia guy when we were growing up in Philadelphia, Little Nicky Scarfo. And so that was an album where actually Camu was just in his production pocket. And I remember we would like, Cage and I would like, we would record and then we would like, oh, we're tired. We would go out to eat or something. And we would just leave with Camu with the MPC. And we would come back, he would have like 3 incredible beats done. But I was supplying the samples. I was finding all these beats that sounded like the theme of the album, kind of like nighttime cop beats. And so we really went with that theme. It's a whole theme album based on the Sylvester Stallone movie, which is an incredible movie. But we were on the top of our game back then. You know what I mean? We were just like kind of recording machines. Done all in my apartment, the motherfucking spot on Lexington.
Oh yeah.
That's so funny because like when I spoke to Vic, he was all like, I remember being in their studio, I think it's on Lexington. And I was like, it was the studio called the motherfucking spot on Lexington, right? He's like, oh yeah, it was on Lexington.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny. But do you have because Camu was using your MPC, right?
Right.
To make the beats.
Yeah.
So do you have like any untold stories of working on that album?
Yeah, I just remember like that story right there where I would just like leave him with 5 records to sample and I would come back and it would be amazed at like what he would create so quickly. So we were pushing each other production wise. And this was an album where he was, you know, also rhyming. So like, it was definitely, you know, Cage still being incredibly lyrical. So the songs had like this kind of cop vibe, you know, so it was very, you know, kind of specific, but it was cool, man. I remember the artwork. We were having this guy named Brian Life do all our covers and he was just killing these covers, man. So he did like a takeoff on the album of the movie cover.
And to Cage's credit, he was doing like project after project.
Yeah.
It was just like nonstop for him.
Absolutely.
That's amazing, man. In 2003, you guys put out the Highlight Zone, right? And this album kind of got a bit of backlash. People felt a certain way about the album. Now, I know, E, you loved the album and you didn't understand. Like, you felt like you were more personal on the album. You felt like it was a better version, right? How did you guys feel about when you guys were making the album? What was the vibe and the intention?
I think it was just very, you know, it was like the first stuff, you know, after, you know, like it was kind of at a different phase for us. And, you know, just, you know, like me and Mai working together. And I think it was, you know, it was just that part. I remember like just certain beats, like that's the one, like the Seb John, you know, I love that song and like stuff like that. And I'd remember, you know, it was at a time like we used a lot, like all these cool samples. It was a time when like the first technology, I think might be wrong, but where you would be able to cut up anything, right? Like to put it on from digitally. So we had like this stuff from like the animated Matrix. And like, I was like really into it. That's when I was just like watching DVDs all the time. And I would like, Mai told me, I was like, yo, put this on. And like, we were cutting up, you know, all these different things that, you know, I love that part. So I liked a lot of like that kind of creativity about it. You know what I mean?
It was definitely in a time where like Cage's relationship with Eastern Conference was coming to an end, and maybe Tame's. You can kind of feel it a little bit on the album that it's like maybe the golden era of Eastern Conference is coming to an end. But our next album, 12th Man, I really like. I feel like Eon just came to an absolute peak lyrically on that album, and we kind of went back to our 2-man crew shit where I produced the whole thing. But yeah.
Right, because on this album, Highlight Zone, you guys got Copy, Cage, R.A. the Rugged Man, Tame One, Reef did some production on it, right? RJD2 as well. I mean, you got Michael Rappaport making his rap debut on the album. You know, I mean, like How to Rob an Actor, which was based off of 50's How to Rob, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how did the relationship with Michael start? Because he did the video I Wanna as well, right?
Yeah. He directed that. And we did that in LA and Koreatown, and we did that shit was dope. And he, that was really kind of cool. And then like the little segment where he does his rap part, so that video was very cool. And like for us, we were just, wilding out and just, being funny and, like take it off and all that shit. So we were trying to keep, with the themes that we had always had, but also just that it was like a different time. So it was dope. Yeah. And that was like, that was like, I guess a time towards the end of being in New York and everything for us. And it was, it was dope.
How did you guys meet Michael Rappaport?
I forget how we did. I think, was that through Shrek too, Mai?
No, this was through a guy we went to college with, Michael Lindenbaum.
Oh, Lindy,
was like
right.
his assistant at the time.
Big up to Lindy.
And whose idea was it for him to rap on the album?
I don't know, but we have this funny story of him recording. He came over to the motherfucking spot and he ate some weed cookies that we gave him.
And he got destroyed and freaked out.
Thank God he did his recording before it kicked in, but it was just like that meme, these edibles ain't shit. And then like 30 minutes later, he was living out that meme, and he was sitting on my kitchen floor, Indian style, on the phone with his wife, saying, "These high and mighty guys, man, they drugged me, man." He was flipping out, But edibles aren't for people who are pent up, so
yeah,
you could see. You could see the real rap come out.
What I thought about was dope on that album was the song Fast Food Nation, which was inspired by the book, right? And what you were talking about was just how America is very unhealthy. How do you think that song has aged now in the current day? Like, is it not more relevant than ever?
Yeah, it was. You just see more signs now, like all the fucked up shit and obesity and stuff. Like, to be honest, even like a year or so ago, I started going back to McDonald's because, it is the devil. And you can sometimes you can get back into it. And then I was like, no, I can't be doing this shit. But no, yeah, I mean, it was, definitely, part of like, that was a thing. And it still is, just like, a lot of the times we touch on different topics and stuff that like remain relevant and stuff. So, I think that was pretty cool. And that dude, Eric Spurlock or whatever his name is, he died too. So, who knows if his horrific, how he treated his body, that whatever amount of time didn't do that to him. Who knows? But yeah, we were, that was interesting. And it does show today.
Right. So then in 2003, you guys released Tame One's album When Rappers Attack, right? What can you tell us about the making of that album?
That was another album that we used all the in-house producers to do, and it just kind of made itself. Tame was another rapper who everyone wanted to hear a project from. Like, come to think about it, we did put out these rappers who started in groups who like were just, ready to put out a solo project, so like Tame was another one, just
Right, because he just
bubbling
came
with
from the
creativity.
Artifacts.
Yeah. And just bubbling with creativity and just top-notch MC. I mean, could hold his own with anyone. I remember when we made the Eastern Conference All-Stars song, like we put Tame first on purpose because we knew he would set the bar for everyone. And he did, and that's one of our proudest moments, that posse cut.
For that album, you handled the majority of the production too? Is that right?
For Tame?
Yeah.
No, I did a couple, but we had, I think VIC did one and RJ did 2 or 3.
Right.
Camu did a couple.
J-Zone.
Him and J-Zone really had a good connection.
Oh, yeah.
So on November 6th, 2022, Tame passed away from kidney and heart failure. What was your guys' reaction when you heard the news?
It was heartbreaking. And, he was such a good kid. He had a lot of stuff that he dealt with. And, not knowing him for a long time, like towards, the end, it was, it's tough to just know what happened. But, we loved that kid and, he was an amazing talent, but it was super sad.
He got the documentary coming out under the same name, it's called, and it's going to be great. Tame was obviously troubled, but just like such a talent, and like I said, I really think he raised our artistry also, just being around him, being around someone who like was hip hop, not to sound cliche, but he really was.
Wait, who's making the documentary?
His mom, right?
No, these like graffiti writers who knew him in Jersey, but also artists, but they've been working on it for like a year and a half now.
Dope. So you guys weren't in contact with him before he died around that time?
No, but we did do a High and Mighty show with him in New York in 2000, I want to say 18, 17.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you could tell he was struggling with his health.
It's unfortunate, man. Yeah, well, rest in peace to Tame, man.
Yeah.
At one point, you guys had such an elite roster of people, even though the Weathermen were a combination of Eastern Conference and Def Jux, right? So you guys had Tame One, Mad Skills, you guys, of course, the list goes on. What was it like to have all those talented people working together during that time?
It was really great,
man. It was dope, man. I used to get to go to Mai's crib and either I was recording or someone else, like Cage, when he did his whole album, I was there like every day. And like all those albums, like, so even when I wasn't, doing it, I was, on the Eastern Conference record side and just, getting to see a lot of that talent. So that was a lot of fun. And that was, it's like, priceless shit.
Special time in underground hip hop for sure, man. What was the relationship like with you guys and Def Jux?
It was cool. Like, I guess we were a little bit competitive. We were really tight with LP for a while when we were doing the rec collabs with him. And then kind of like the natural competitiveness, I guess, took over and kind of went our separate ways. But, we were all family at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
We hit the time, the pivotal moment where people and everyone has it, is when you get angry and you're mad at the people who are paying you. Like we had it with, Raucous, and everyone thinks like that they're kind of going to be bigger than they are. And like, that's the thing, like when you come back and now you're older and you see it and you're like, all right, everyone did what they did. But, at the time, when you're working with, someone, they think they're going to be huge. And like, even if they worked with us and then they, went on, I think it was interesting, like that whole part of it. But, that's kind of a lot of times that happens. And that's what happened, I thought, with us.
Got you. In 2004, the Leak Bros album Waterworld comes out, right? Which is Cage and Tame One. Now, how did that album come about, and what do you guys remember about working on that album?
They would just come up with like this kind of theme albums, and we would just like do it. We knew like that the rappers could write albums very quickly, especially if it was a collab album, especially Tame and Cage, like very prolific writers at that time. We knew we had beats. We knew we could afford to make the albums. That was another thing back then. You had to have like a certain kind of indie budget to make an album. And like beats were pretty cheap, but not free, so to mix the album, master it, and pay for it to be made took a certain amount of budget. So that's what we were doing, but we had it down to like kind of a science until the whole industry bottomed out when like the illegal downloading started. And that really cut into our profit margin and just like couldn't really sustain it. So the whole industry kind of bottomed out around 2006-ish, I'd say.
When that album came out, right, was Cage already hit out of Eastern Conference at that point, pretty much? Like he was on his way out?
For the Leak Brothers?
Yeah.
I think we had agreed on a certain amount of Cage projects. So that EP, Weatherproof, is the last thing, like, and we all like knew it,
Got you.
I'm not sure if that came after the Leak Brothers album or before.
I think it came out after, I think
Okay.
the following year.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the situation with R.A. the Rugged Man, he was never signed to Eastern Conference, right? He was just affiliated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just someone we were cool with, for sure.
Was there a reason why he never signed?
Yeah, because he was in his own insane world. He never would sign.
What do you mean he in his own insane world?
Well, he was definitely back then. He was, independent. Remember, he didn't have an album out. Like I guess everyone was waiting for him to do an album, and he just was kind of in his own world. I don't think he wanted to do it. And like sometimes like the individual little like times we interacted with him, I don't know if it was like the best fit.
Got you.
For like a long term and like lot. But he knew, like people knew, like if people had albums and stuff, like they could always talk to us, and like we would, we always loved our peers and like putting shit out. So
He was pretty hard to work with back then, but like also brilliant at the same time. So that was kind of like the theme back then with a lot of the artists. Ian and I were almost like too normal, I want to say. It's like that was part of like the thing back then. Like, like this dude is amazing to work with, but he took our video and held it hostage.
Right.
R.A. did that?
Yeah.
What video was that?
Bottom Feeders?
The Bottom Feeders, the one that he did.
Oh, right. Okay.
You ever seen that video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. So, because when you look at the older interviews of him, he says like you and him never liked each other. You, Milo, and him never liked each other, and it was just about money. So, was there something that happened in particular that started the problems, or just from the beginning it was just known that this is just business and we're not going to get along?
Well, that's not true. I mean, we did get along for a lot of time. You don't record like 5, 6, 7 songs with someone if you don't continually come to their apartment if you don't get along. So that's not true that we never didn't get along. But when the whole
recently, go ahead, sorry.
No, when the whole Smut Peddlers thing happened, it was like impossible to ignore that there was something happening. So we just dealt with it, and feel like the songs we made with him were good, and I'm not trying to badmouth him at all. And then he apologized to me on Twitter a couple of years ago, like a public thing. And that meant something, you know, and I replied and I said, you know, you're one of the best to ever do it. And thanks for that. It was a pleasure to work with you. Because that's honestly how I feel. Like, I don't have like any animosity or like continue. Like, Necro just did a recent thing about me. I didn't even watch it. Like, I have no interest.
Well, I wasn't going to ask you about that, but anyway, so because I was asked not to ask you about that from Copy. Copy told me not to ask you about that.
Really?
Yeah, but anyways, well, let's finish this thought first. So with RA though, did you guys have a conversation after the public apology though?
No.
But wouldn't that be dope to work together again though? Like, are you open to that?
I guess so. I mean, we just put out Sound of Market with a lot of features and stuff, and now we're working with some new rappers. So we keep that theme of High and Mighty going with having like new features, kind of like that's how we feel about Sound of Market. It was kind of like the dudes who we like grew up on idolizing, the Chill Rob G's this time, instead of our peers per se, which were what the old albums were about. These ones were all our bucket list guys.
When you look at a situation like with RA, is it easy for you to have like empathy to understand that he was going through a tough time during that time in those early years where he was working with you guys because he believed that he was blackballed, he didn't have any money, and he was going through sometimes people project their own issues onto other people, right?
Well, yeah, but that was definitely ironic that we had the amount of beef we did because we were always very fair with artists and always paid them right up front, like never owed money to anyone. So that was another thing RA probably liked about working on us. When he came to my apartment, he knew that he was going to be paid on the spot. There was no waiting for your money or anything like that. We had 50-50 deals with the artists that were signed to Eastern Conference. That's still like an unknown, the only people to have that kind of deal, and we're still paying royalties and accounting to Tame's mom and to everyone. So I just feel like it was so ironic that we had this reputation for being like shady or whatever it was, like our first relationship with Ill Advised and those guys ended like that, and it's unfortunate because we've always made sure to be like fair with artists.
Yeah, because, that was one thing that I was confused by too. And I think other fans were as well because of his interview back in like 2004 with MV Remix. He made it seem like it was a thing when he addressed the situation that Copy was potentially having a deal with Jay-Z, right? And he said that, well, would you rather work with Jay-Z or not get paid by Milo? Milo doesn't pay people and stuff like that. So it was made about money. But from what you're saying is that you guys always paid up front like that. So that was the incentive.
Oh, maybe. I mean, ask Copy right now if we were ever unfair with him. We've given him back his album many times. Like, I think Copy would say that we're very fair. That was just a way to divorce yourself from somebody back then. So Copy felt like he was about to go with Jay-Z. So what do? You shit on the label that you're currently on, because that was what we did with Raucous. We felt like we had to have this aggressive last meeting with them, but we both wanted to go our separate ways. It's just how you split back then in hip hop.
Yeah. Right. And I'm not saying that Copy said that. I'm saying that that's what RA was talking about in that interview. He was reacting to the rumors that Copy was going to sign with Jay or Rockefeller or some sort.
Yeah, he had no idea. Yeah, he doesn't. And even recently, he said, "I don't even know what I was mad about." Like, so that's some RA shit, dude. That's just
what
RA.
The public apology is about, is thinking over the last decade and going, why did I hate those guys? I actually didn't.
There isn't a reason.
So that feels kind of good.
Yeah,
like,
when you look at every interview he's spoken about you guys, it was very like passionate in that way of like, I would never sign with those guys. I hated those guys. You know what I mean? But to your point though, Copy told me himself that when he had issues with you guys, it was his own fault. He said that those guys did nothing but try to look out for me. I was on some bullshit, and they really didn't do anything wrong to me as far as they looked out for me money wise and everything. And I think that was a matured perspective that Copy had gotten, right? But like you said, that there's a time where a lot of times the artist is looking at somebody's got to be responsible.
Yeah, you always think that you're going to be bigger than you are unless you are. And that's just the rare people. And you're always going to be mad at the people who are paying you. And you always deserve more, or you deserve something different. It's just everyone has it. Everyone.
All right, Milo, do you want to talk about the necro thing or no?
Not really. There's no new information to.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable.
No, I don't feel uncomfortable. There's just nothing new to unfold from it.
Yeah. So to build off of that, right? The rise and fall of Eastern Conference. What do you guys think is the biggest reasons for the fall of Eastern Conference?
I think everyone wanted more. I think me and Mai were kind of cool with what, I think when we did the Raucous album and everything, and we kept going, I don't think, I don't know, maybe I'm, tell me if you think differently. I don't think we ever thought then all of a sudden we were just going to, catapult into stardom. We were kind of cool with who we were and what we were doing. At some point, everyone thinks they're going to be bigger. Cage did 100%. He saw more Def Jux, signs on the street. And he kind of started hanging out with L, and he kind of started just thinking I can have more. And he would say, oh, for Aesop Rock, I'm doing this and this. And so Cage in his mind was oh, I should have that being done for me. And that's all back to that theme. So, I mean, that's all I think it was. Tame never did that, but Copywrite did. And just like you're saying, Copywrite said that. But again, if Copywrite thinks he's in his 20s and he's going to be signed to Jay-Z, of course he's going to do that. I don't know about dissing us, that was just part of being young, I think. But, that's what I think it was.
Also, having a 10-year run, really Eastern Conference was from 96 to 2006-ish. That's pretty good in hip hop, actually.
Absolutely.
So I think Eric and I were also kind of satisfied with what we had done. I was ready to move to Vegas to continue being a DJ for some reason, even though in retrospect, I probably should have grown up then. And then Eric, moved to Philly and had a son and a family. And so I think
real estate.
Right. The two of us were kind of over it a little bit, to be honest with you. Sure, we would have liked to do bigger things for our own group and continued with that. But then we got to with Sound of Marcus. So it all worked out.
Yeah. And then I think that people don't talk about the fact that Land Speed Records folding, that affected you guys, right? The distribution.
Yeah, the whole industry really bottomed out. And
right.
People like Alchemist stayed true to hip hop and kept grinding, and it paid off for him. But 90% of the acts from that time aren't really doing it anymore, unfortunately.
And then I remember in the interview you spoke about when you were in Amsterdam with Cage, and you guys were at an internet cafe, and he showed on Napster that the Movies for the Blind was already available on there before the album even came out. And that was a warning to you guys that it's about to change, basically.
Not even a warning, the actual moment where we saw our business end.
Right. Well, that's what one thing I always said is you go back to B-Boy Document in 98 to be able to sell 25,000 of those. And then, 3 years later, put something out and you're selling 200, because those same consumers who were 16 or whatever, 15 and now 18 just are poor. They don't have money. So, unless you're a DJ and need two physical, copies, you're just trying to listen to the song. And, everyone changed how they listen to music. So it was, it had to reset itself. The whole industry had to learn what it was doing with itself. And, for me, I was living in Manhattan in 2004 with a $2,800 a month rent. It was over. And like, I could not do that shit anymore. I had a wife, I had a kid on the way, and it was just fucking over. And, I'm lucky enough that I was able to do something else. Milo's lucky enough and talented enough that he was able to do what he's doing. So, it's part of life.
For sure. And, I've seen you guys say in the past in other interviews, it's basically like people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes, like the amount of work that goes into helping these artists put out these projects, the investment and everything. And it's not like you guys are a major label where, you're making millions of dollars and everything like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, like, I'm sure on certain things you might have lost money too, like, so there's a lot of things that go into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's an adventure, and we were just glad that we were able to do it, and able to put out a record this past year and still work on shit. So it's dope.
What was it like for you guys, though, from the other side of things, watching the internal conflict between the Weathermen, though? The issues that obviously had to have an effect on Eastern Conference as a whole.
Well, it was a weird thing. I thought it was just, my involvement was, one time I was told I was in the Weathermen and then not. And like, I think, that had to do with like, other people were non-Eastern Conference people in it. And just, maybe that was their own thing and what they wanted. But I don't know. It was just kind of, the way that it was. And, it was upsetting and stuff. And to see, like certain people act a little bit differently and stuff. It was just part of sign of the times. And it was part of being young and, really trying to, survive. And so people's instincts kicked in. And so, as you get older and you look at it like in that way, it is what it is. And, no one, was hurt or anything. So, we're lucky to have done what we've done. It's a blessing.
Yeah, there was just like so many egos back then, you know what I mean? So to have this super group at the time, you were bound to get what comes along with that. But I do remember recording the Weatherman album, and we were sharing an office at the time with Shecky because he was running Game Records and we were running Eastern Conference. And we had a studio in the back. And we were recording all those Weatherman stuff there. Our boy Kid Swift, rest in peace. He was the engineer. And we just banged it out very quickly. I think in 1 week we did all the recordings. And I knew that was going to be like a big project because all those groups were like at the height of their popularity at that time.
But wasn't it disappointing for you guys to see that when it started to spill over into like violence, though, like with Copy and Camu Tao and Cage and just like all those things happening? Like, did you guys try to piece things up behind the scenes with that?
No, to be honest with you, like we were kind of like out of the scene at that point. Right. Like once Cage left Eastern Conference, like Cage was kind of like the center of the social circuit for some reason back then. Like, and he was very influential and pitting people against each other, bringing people together, like very instrumental. So once he left EC, like at least I did. I was just
very
like
clicky, and like I remember like
that's kind of my
Cage
immediate
just
past.
completely going, and he was just like it. He just went with Def Jux, and it was weird. Like we were cool, and then I remember in 2005, I lived in Brooklyn, and so did he, and like we never even spoke or saw each other, and it was just at that point, that's just what it was, and like just trying to see what's up and just work and do other things, you know?
But in more recent years, you guys have worked with both Copy and both Cage, right? And I feel like they're like the last surviving main dudes, right? And have you guys tried to get a conversation between those two? Because I feel like that's who the fans really want to see together again.
I haven't. I feel like Copy wants it to happen, but Cage is just so far removed from wanting that to happen or being on that. Like, he just moved and I feel like, I'm not sure because we don't really talk about life that much, but I feel like he's kind of moved on in life to, being on our album was one thing, and that took months, I don't think he's really out here like just like doing collabs and recording like that.
Got you. So 2005, you guys released the 12th Man album. What was the mindset going into the studio with this album?
12th Man was like the return to the 2-man crew shit. Like, it was just like me and E back together. We don't really care. We're through with all that drama. It's just the two of us left on Eastern Conference, and it's kind of like E's last album before he leaves New York. We recorded and mixed it at our boy Joey's crib, who's done all the current LP stuff, Run the Jewels. And that was just like a really fun album to make. And it was done in his Tribeca apartment, and we would go out and eat lunch every day. And it was just, I had also been off weed for a long time, I remember, and then like started smoking again in those sessions.
And do you think that helped you artistically more?
I don't know. It was just maybe like a celebration of the album being done.
Got you. But yeah, like that was like kind of like a return to your guys' like hip hop roots in a way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you worked with Sean Price on 2 separate songs, on Star Destroyers and Crack the Egg. What was that like working with Sean?
That was amazing, man. He was just so talented and so awesome and just like funny. And like, I had awesome conversations with him, and he was really a cool guy, man. He was awesome.
And also just like another guy where like maybe at the time you didn't realize that you were working with like this absolute guy who was going to become an icon, but like once we got into the studio and stuff, and like hearing him spit in my kind of like bedroom closet mic recording place, like that was just crazy to have him in the crib, and he was telling us all these funny stories. And then when I collabed with him right before he passed away, he sent me this text, and I don't know if it's true or not, but he said that you guys were the first ones to pay me for a collab, for a feature. And which is crazy to me, but that's what he said.
What was your guys' reaction when you got the news that he had passed away?
It was just sad, man. It was very upsetting.
Just the loss of another legend prematurely. Another like also reminder just to like, try to keep your health up as hard as it is, as you get older. Seems like tons of people from our industry are passing away in their 50s and 40s and early 60s, and it fucking sucks, man.
Yeah, it's sad. It's a tragic thing, man. Rest in peace to Sean. On May 25th, 2008, Camu Tao passed away from a battle with lung cancer. What was your guys' reaction, and were you guys able to attend the funeral?
I remember being shocked.
Yeah.
In shock, and kind of fell out of touch with him at that point. I think he was back in Ohio, yeah. And just had no idea really that he had been sick until like, a couple months before he passed. It was one of those where unfortunately the person passes pretty quickly, but man, I miss him so much, and like didn't really realize it when I was with him, like how much really liked him, and he was like this kind of kindred spirit. And another guy who really raised our artistry.
Can you guys share like some of your favorite stories with him?
I had a funny one that he one time me and my ex-wife went out with him and his girl, and it's like when you hang out like as like hip hop people and you're just like recording and doing that, but then you're like with your girl. And I remember it was like so funny. It was like very different. Like we kind of dressed up and we went out to dinner one night, and it was just funny. But like I remember like that. But he's just such a a cool guy, and like a like my set of kindred spirit, and just like he was just like funny and like always trying to be lighthearted and stuff. So it was good. Like I had a couple of those funny things with him, but yeah, he was awesome, man.
Most of my stories were like studio stories, where he would just do really cool things in the studio. But also like Eon, he had this weird connection, like this social thing where he would like hook you up with girls and stuff like that, his friends, his girlfriend's friends. And so I had a couple experience of that with him also in the real world, He had a definite charm to him, man. And I also played ball with him, and he was this whole other character on the basketball court. It was amazing.
For sure, man. Rest in peace to Camu Tao, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's this rumor that in 2015, Cage experienced a car accident and had amnesia for 2 years. Can you guys confirm if that's true or not?
I had never heard that one in my life.
I had heard that recently, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I get a lot of DMs on Instagram, like stands of his going like, "Yo, Mighty, could you tell me if..." I'm like, I don't know, man. But like, that was one of them, that he had this car accident. But no, I didn't have any experiences like where he forgot to send me his address for a royalty check.
Man, that's crazy because like, okay, so I first saw it on Wikipedia, but on Wikipedia, you can only trust it so much, right?
Right.
And then I saw like in this like review of his album, they spoke about it, that he had the accident and it was like he was learning how to rap again. And it took like 2 years that he had amnesia or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, from 2015 is when the accident happened, is what they said. Now, when I asked Copy was unaware that happened. Necro was unaware of that happened. And like Copy was like, I don't know if that's true or not. Like that might be invented. So I don't know, so I figured you guys were the best people
that
to
might
ask.
be just a tale of legend.
A tale of legend.
Well, when did we do Kill the Architect? 2013?
I thought it was 11, wasn't it? Or no, 13. Oh. Yeah, it might have been 13. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, so they were saying that it kind of like coincided with his later projects with Sam Hill and everything. So I don't know though. Maybe that's just a thing. But that's interesting. That if you guys have not heard about it, then I think that,
never ever heard of it.
I think fans in the comments, I think that we can mark this one off as rumor and not true. Okay. Yeah. Because like he said, if he didn't forget to give him the address for his royalty check, I think that's pretty legit. All right. So earlier this year, you guys released your first album together in 20 years, man. So what inspired you guys to come back together after so much time apart?
I think for me, writing, it was kind of like I really had kind of gotten into this being a dad thing, and I had this whole career in real estate, and like it was always there, but then it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it was like riding a bike because I went years of not writing anything, but then like, here and there, I would just start to write like a couple lines here and there and stuff, and like then like in my phone and stuff like that. But then I don't know. I just got the bug. I was like, let me just start, writing. And then Mai sent me like a few of these different beats all at once. It was like the super sound beat, the two high whiteys, all these. And I think I just like, it just came out. I like literally like smoked, and like whatever was on the album just started coming out of my head. And that's, I don't know how it happens. It's very weird. And that's what happened in my mind, like for me.
Wow.
I think initially our distributor, shout out to Soul Spasm, I think he said, you know, if you guys do like a couple of new songs, it'll bring some attention back to your catalog and you'll sell more and your monthly catalog royalties will go up. So initially it was just kind of like this business thing that we were going to try out. And then like we always have in our recording career, like 2 songs turn into 6 songs and 6 songs turn into 12 songs and 12 songs turn into 17. So we actually kept 2 off of this. We have a song with the Artifacts, both Tame and L, and one with Esoteric that are on initially just the vinyl version. And then it'll be on an EP that we're going to come out with in the beginning of the year. So yeah, man, we just got onto a creative kick and I had a lot of verses from these rappers. So a lot of the time I would send Eon like a song with OC verse, his blank 16 bars, then OC's 8 bars in the third verse. And I say, Eon, all you got to do is 8 right here and a second 8 right there. We got a song with OC done. And so I think, you know, I tried to set him up.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's exactly what happened. It's true.
How did you guys choose who you wanted to be on the album?
Just guys who we grew up loving, like, you know, King T and Chill Rob G and Chub Rock and Search, you know, like this album was like a bucket list of, you know, we always take this term golden era seriously, like hip hop from 84 to 94 that we grew up on. And I do these Twitch streams weekly where I'm playing all that stuff and kind of live blends and just keeping my creative juices going. It's like my therapy, just an hour, 2 hours a week of playing this type shit. I have like a small audience, you know, like 40 guys watching me, but they're like dedicated to that genre.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what this album is, kind of a return. And Sound of Market is this record store we went to growing up in Philly, but also the sound of that neighborhood and this stroll we went on where we would go to all these consumer shops, sneaker shops, record shops, and kind of gear shops. And it kind of shaped us, our who we were, like, you know, artistically and style-wise and fashion-wise. So that's what Sound of Market is.
What was it like for you guys to work with Esoteric?
It was cool. He's dope, and like I talked to him on the phone and stuff, and so it was dope to actually collab like that. And so that was kind of cool. It was nice.
He did a tennis reference for me on the song. You know, he keeps up with our lives on Instagram, so that's funny when you see like MCs reference stuff that they see on your Instagram story. You know, that's the life, that's the times we're living in.
That's dope, man. All right, last question, okay? How do you feel the term underground hip hop has transformed over the years, like from your guys' time to now?
Well, I think it's a very broad term, like the New York scene of the underground, quote unquote, backpack rapper time of like 92 to, you know, 2002 was what we were a part of. You know, independent, you know, that's what the New York independent thing is. The Lyricist Lounge to Raucous to whatever. But then, you know, doing it independently, you know, we just had this verses with, you know, Master P and Cash Money, and they all did all that independently, and that's a whole other world. But I'm just glad that we were able to be a part of it, and it's, you know, it's definitely with the 30-year anniversary of Fat Beats and everything, it's cemented as its own kind of era, and it's going to be continue to be celebrated. That's why all these things are coming out now. It's cyclical, and, you know, every 30 years it comes back. So like, why not us?
And it's interesting, the underground hip hop of today, like, it's almost like like they're revolting against big sounding things. And that's initially when we started. It was a slapback to the Diddy era and the shininess in the clubs and these records where they were just jacking dance classics. And it seems like now the underground is like the shittier your record sounds sonically, the more appeal it is. So it's kind of made a return to intentionally not sounding polished. So that's interesting. You have that whole Alchemist movement where they're not putting drums on songs, and the songs almost sound unfinished, and it's almost like intentional for it not to sound polished.
Right. And Eon, I saw in an interview with you from like 2004. During that time, you were saying that the underground at that time had changed to be kind of like more emotional about girls and stuff like that, and like kind of teenager type of things, right? It wasn't like pulling from the hip hop roots that you guys came from, like LL, KRS, Public Enemy.
Yeah, it got a little emo.
Yeah.
Maybe I remember that, but that's what it was. But that's okay. But I don't know. We were more, like real to the roots and like golden era. So, we were just kind of stuck in our ways.
Right. Because now when you say underground hip hop, it's not necessarily like from our time period, we remember more of the boom bap sound. Now it doesn't really mean that anymore, right? It's just like, it's like a totally different thing. I think a lot of times people say it just to say independent, like it's synonymous with that or something.
Right. No, I agree. Like, I think it's definitely changed, but again, the whole thing changed where, now you can sit in your house and do everything. It was a different time when you had to go and record and have the equipment. You had to spend money. Like Milo worked for years to keep buying equipment so keeping up with, what you needed to do once it went to, like Pro Tools and all that. So, now it's like you can get on a computer and like get on an app and like, didn't someone made a whole album on their like iPad and it was like, oh my God. So, I guess that's what it is now.
Well, now you can just make a whole album by writing a prompt.
Right.
So,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah. All right, guys, man, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you guys want to say to the people before we go ahead and wrap it up?
Just check out Sound of Market on cassette, CD, or vinyl, or digital, man.
Yes.
We feel so blessed to be 53 years old with a new cassette out.
That's right. That's how we do.
Thank you so much for having us, Panda.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, bro.